Okay, so welcome to this video. This is a video on the product rule, okay? So we've already covered some of our basic derivative rules, and the product rule obviously deals with when you have a product. So if you look at what they're showing us here, okay, if we have a product, so you see the f of x times g of x, and we want the derivative of that, that's what that d over dx stands for. Then what we want to do is we want to take the derivative of the first, multiply that to the second, and then add that to the first times the derivative of the second, okay? What I like to tell students is just make sure each function is multiplying to the derivative of the other function. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So in our first example, with this f of x function right here, we have a product, okay, and we have two things being multiplied together, okay, two binomials, I should say, and we're going to think of this one as the first, and we're going to think of this one as the second, okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to find the derivative, okay, and we're going to do the derivative of the first times the second plus the first times the derivative of the second. Okay, so essentially the derivative of the first, okay, must multiply with the other function, and then the derivative of the second must multiply with the other function. So like I said, just make sure your derivatives are multiplying with the other function, okay. So let's go through it here. All right, so f prime of x, okay, and we're going to actually use the parts there that we have. So the derivative of the first is going to be the derivative of the 3x squared plus 6. Okay, so, all right, the 3 is a constant multiple, and that's going to multiply times the derivative of the x squared, which is 2x. And then the 6 is a constant. The derivative of that is 0. So that's the derivative of the first. And then I'm going to multiply that to the derivative of, sorry, to the second function, not the derivative of the second function, just the second function. All right, and then I'm going to take my first function, which is that 3x squared plus 6, and I'm going to multiply that to the derivative of the second function. So the second function is the 2x to the 1/2 minus 5. The 2 is a constant multiple, and that's going to multiply to the derivative of the x to the 1/2. So that's going to be 1/2 x to the negative 1/2. And then the 5, the minus 5 is a constant, so the derivative of that is 0. Okay, and then let's just clean this up just a little bit here. So we'll say f prime of x equals, and that's going to be 6x, that first part there just all simplifies to 6x, times 2x to the 1/2 minus 5. And then the second over here, the second thing, if I multiply the 2 and the 1/2, that's just 1. So that whole thing there simplifies down to x to the negative 1/2. I'm just going to put that in the front so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, and then multiply to the 3x squared plus 6. Okay, so this would be your answer, all right, for your derivative. Okay. And we don't need to simplify further, okay, because we are going to use Excel with these. And so as long as we can get it to this form, that will be good enough for Excel, okay? All right, so let's look at our g of x function here. Okay, the same thing we're going to follow. We're going to do the derivative of the first times the second plus the first times the derivative of the second. So we're going to follow that same pattern. All right, and this is our first, and this is our second, okay? And I'm just going to write it out one more time here. So the derivative of the first times the second plus the first times the derivative of the second. Okay, and then let's actually do the derivative here. So g prime of x will be, okay, now when we're doing the derivative of the first, you're going to want to think about the rewrite for that particular function. So your rewrite, I'll do it up here above, is going to be x to the negative 1 plus x to the negative 2. All right, and that is just getting it in a form so we can take our derivative, okay? So the derivative of the first, okay, like I said, I'm going to use this rewrite here, okay? That's going to be negative 1 x to the negative 2 minus 2x to the negative 3. That's the derivative of the first times the second, the 3x cubed plus 27, plus the first. Okay, now here I can just write it as it was originally written, like that, okay? Or I could write the x to the negative 1 plus x to the negative 2. Either one of those is fine to write there. It's just your preference, okay? I'm just going to erase this for right now, just so I don't have too much clutter there, okay? But that's the first, okay? And then the derivative of the second. So 3 is a constant multiple. We'll multiply to the derivative of the x cubed, which will be 3x squared. And the 27 is a constant, and the derivative of constant is 0. All right, so let's just clean all this up just a little bit here. Okay, so g prime of x. All right, so there's not much we can do to clean up this first one, except for we could drop the 1 there and just say negative x to the negative 2. Okay, and that'll be times the 3x cubed plus 27. And then this guy right here, this second one here, I can go ahead and multiply the 3's, and that'll be a 9, and that'll be a 9x squared. So I'm just going to put that in the front. All right, and that would be our derivative, okay? And that's as far as you need to simplify it, okay? So you can see here, the product rule is pretty straightforward. You just have to be mindful of doing all the steps, right? There's 4 steps to it, but it's not too tricky. It's just using some of the other derivative things we've talked about. Now, this particular problem here, number 3, do not use the product rule. Okay, so what you have to remember is sometimes we want to just rewrite the function and then just use our basic derivatives, okay? So what I mean by that is my m of x function, I can just distribute the 3, so it'll be 3x squared plus 15x minus 24, and then I just want to use basic derivatives. Okay, so that's going to be 3. 3 is a constant multiple times the derivative of the x squared, which is 2x. And then 15 is a constant multiple times the derivative of the x, which remember that's 1x to the 0 there. And then the derivative of the minus 24, which is 0. And so my simplified derivative will be 6x plus 15, okay? And this is going to be a much better answer for you than trying to do the product rule, okay? The product rule is just a lot of extra work. It's going to just be a bit more tedious to get through it. So keep in mind, just because you see a product, okay, like what we have here in number 3, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to use the product rule. Think about, can I simplify that function, do a rewrite, and then just use my basic derivatives. Whenever you can use your basic derivatives, you always want to just do it that way. Okay, that's going to be the best choice. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.